Okay, we'll call the meeting to order today. It's February 28th, and this will be the TAC for PPACG. And we do have a quorum. Miley Foster, Welling Clark, and Karen Lusby will be away today, so they will be excused absences. So we have do some introductions here. We have a new person from Manitou. If you'd like to introduce yourself, you can just push it. Yes.
All right. So, hi, I'm Carrie Storm. I'm here from Manitou Springs. I've lived in Manitou since 2017. I have quite a variety of things I do in Manitou. I'm on the Planning Commission. I'm president of the Heritage Center and Museum, and also do a variety of other things around town, and was asked to serve on this board, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'd like to start, just give your name so that she's aware of who everybody is.
I'm Teresa Cheek.
Kathy Heisey.
Gary Sugar.
Kelly Standard.
Oh.
You're up.
Bill Bowes, Park County.
Chuck Theobald, City of Colorado Springs.
Chris Crockett, Kono.
Tyler Peoples.
And I'm Ed Dills. And glad to have you. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Ann, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Ann Hesh represents Green Mountain Falls. She's online.
Thank you.
And Summer, I believe you're online.
She's
Okay,
muted.
she's muted. Okay. Okay, we'll proceed on. At this stage, we need to have an agenda approval. If you've all had the opportunity to look at it, take a motion on that.
We'll move approval of the agenda.
Have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we've got an agenda. And moving on, consent items. Pardon me, I had a hiccup there. If we can, have you all had the opportunity to approve the minutes from last meeting? Look at the minutes, I should say. Okay, do we have a,
I move approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Second the motion.
okay, any further discussion? Everything's fine? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One abstain. Did you also? Did you get that? Sure. Okay, okay. Okay, public comments. Do we have anybody online?
So I ask anyone who's online who is not a member of the CAC to please use the raise hand function if you'd like to provide a public comment. While we're allowing for anyone online to do that, we'll ask anyone who's in the audience who would like to make a public comment to go up to the podium. And while we're waiting for both those things, I would just let the committee know that we did not receive any advance requests for public comment, and we did not receive any written public comment that we would have forwarded along to the committee members. As I've said all of that, I don't see any hands raised. I don't see anyone at the podium, so I think we can proceed at your discretion.
Okay, well, we're moving along pretty fast. Danelle, I believe you're up next with the presentation.
Actually, Jess Bechtel is gonna talk about our tip document. I did want to let everyone know that Paul Wiggins has also joined.
Okay.
Hi there, good afternoon. So the next item is the tip, and it's been brought to you a few times for information. The tip is the document that we keep track of the federally designated funds for the region in, and transit funds as well. This round, the FY 25-29 document has gone through a review process. We just recently closed the public open house. Our public comment period of 30 days and had an open house. And so now we are asking for your recommendation to take it to the board for adoption. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. And
Are the two questions or comments attached? Is that the question?
the comments are attached. They are also included in the tip document as well as one of the appendices. We only received two on this go around, but those are included there for you as well.
Okay. And has everybody had an opportunity to look at those? Okay. that all you need to present now?
That's all I need to present unless there's any specific questions or anything we can dig further into.
Well, we can ask for a motion at this time for Jessica's TIP amendment to be passed.
TIP document, yeah. Recommendation for approval for the board.
Move
Uh,
we
Kathy
approve.
Heisey Callahan, I move approval.
Cali Standard, City of Colorado Springs. I second.
Second. Any additional discussion? Any online? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I see none.
All right,
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, is Jason on the line or? Okay, I've got a post. I couldn't see him. You were up. Sorry, I couldn't see you through the post. I thought maybe you were online.
So I'm going to give a little introduction and then turn it over to our consultants on the project. So just going to talk to you a little bit about the active transportation plan this afternoon. It hasn't come to this group yet. We've been working for a few months. So as you know, we're now working on PPACG's long-range transportation plan, which we do every 4 to 5 years to serve as a guide for development of the regional transportation system. So you know about that effort that's going on. So that plan is comprehensive, looking at all modes. Feeding into that are a few sub-plans for different transportation modalities, roadways, transit, freight, and active transportation. Active transportation is what we'd like to talk about today. So that includes walking, biking, different choices like e-bikes, e-scooters, things like that. So it's fairly broad, micro mobility options. A few months ago, we hired the Olson engineering firm to lead an active transportation plan that looks at infrastructure, policy, trends, data, takes a pretty broad look at regional active transportation. So recognizing that our member governments tend to have their own plans and ideas regarding active transportation, we want to explore in this plan what we can do on a regional level. So things like consistent guidelines, coordination, regional priority setting, data, things like that. And just expanding our regional knowledge base on these topics. So we'd like to also pitch in on active transportation safety, which, as has been pointed out by some folks, has been worsening even as other measures of transportation safety get better. So like pedestrian fatalities have gone up, even though there's been some improvement in other areas, general traffic safety fatalities. So before we get too far along in the project, thought it would be a good idea to just check in with this group, make sure we're on the righteous path, get any kind of feedback or questions you have, and just as provide some context, we're planning on coming back to the CAC later in the project. I would say at least 2 more times, so probably once more just to give you the final draft document, get any final comments, and then again after that for your formal recommendation. So that's kind of where we are. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kyle from our consultant group that's leading the project.
Right. Thank you. And then I will try to share my screen. Let's see. Do you see a big PowerPoint? And I don't know what exactly your room looks like. So hopefully I don't have too many small words that people can't see. But yeah, so thanks for the introduction. I want to kind of talk through. Jason mentioned several of the agenda topics, but we'll skip through them then. So really want to just talk about what is active transportation. Jason touched on that. He touched on the role. So then we'll kind of dive into some of the stakeholder and public process that we're working on and have been working on. I'll ask for your feedback on the vision, and then for the same thing for the goals, and then finish up with touching on the schedule and handing off to the next. So, what is active transportation? Jason kind of hit it on the head. It's anything people getting around that is human powered. So walking, using wheelchair, biking, scooters, kind of you name it across the board. If it's human powered, you kind of can lump it into active transportation. So, and that, obviously opens up a whole list of things of types of investment that can happen. And the role of the plan is to really leverage the efforts that are already ongoing, things that have already been done in the region, as well as where a lot of the stakeholder process so far has been trying to understand what the vision is and really where we want to be as a region. Want to establish a baseline understanding of what do we consider connected, and a few different whether it be metrics or different ways to understand the safety and comfort of facilities across the region. And then mostly what this plan needs to do is support decision making at the local level. So you just approved the TIP for the next 5 years, and often in order to get on the TIP and as a precursor for TIP projects, plans like this will identify projects. These types of plans, whether it's the active plan or the transit plan or any of those other regional plans, are something that is asked for at the federal funding level. So as you go for discretionary grants, they'll ask, is it on an adopted plan? So this provides another one of those plans that kind of can collate projects. And the last thing, Jason also touched on a little bit, this will not supplant or replace any local plans. This is not meant to tell agencies what to do or what projects that they should work on. It really is a gathering of projects, let's look across the borders and make sure that connections are being made across jurisdictional boundaries, where most of the time when cities are looking, they're focused on their own boundaries and their own streets and their own networks. So this is an opportunity to see what do we need to do to connect across the region. So I'll stop there. Any questions of kind of what active transportation is or what we want to do with the plan?
Kyle, I do have one question. Specifically, is this for Metro Colorado Springs, or does this go into Park County, Eastern El Paso County?
So the boundary of this is for the MPO. So that's for MPO agencies. So it does not technically include like Cripple Creek, but it does include bigger chunks of Teller, includes larger than just Colorado Spring chunks of El Paso County. So the MPO boundary is the technical boundary of the plan.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
So
yeah, appreciate that.
Ann has a question.
So Green Mountain Falls is barely in it, right?
Green Mountain Falls is in it. Yep.
Yeah, way up here. Okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
No problem. Yeah. And if nothing else, I'll kind of jump into stakeholders. So as a good segue, Green Mountain Falls and Woodland Park were one of our 12 stakeholder meetings. We hosted over the December-January timeframe. A lot of great interaction. I think we ended up having roughly 35 or so people who actually were, talked at some point during the process. We combined a couple of agencies, for instance, Green Mountain Falls and Woodland Park. We combined Monument and Palmer Lake, and just a couple of those other, like or close neighbors we had combined. So some of the key takeaways, and I don't know if everybody had a chance to look over. I believe you had in your packet a summary document of this, as well as a couple of other things at the end, but more detail is in that document if you want to kind of look at it. But at a high level, the key takeaways from these interviews were safety is a big priority. That ranges from crime and homelessness, on trails and making sure that people feel safe when using the facilities, to visibility of users and making sure that as we design facilities, we get users into the eyes of the drivers. A lot of conversations about the different speeds, whether it's bike lanes and the different speed of a motor vehicle and a bicyclist on the roadway, or just the separation of bicyclists and pedestrians, right? So that speed difference came up several times. Connectivity, big push on making sure that it's the high quality connections between the existing infrastructure. So a lot of talk about, we've got a lot of good things going on, but some things just need to kind of have that last little bit of connection to make them really usable for a lot larger number of people. Had some conversations and many brought up, some El Paso County trails and more recreational type trails system. So that was good. And then, one of the other key facets of connectivity was just interconnection with transit and the ability for people to chain modes, right? So riding your bike to a bus stop, throwing your bike on the bus, and then bringing you to a park or some kind of facility. So brings up a good point of, we have been coordinating at different points with other ongoing plans, the transit plan, for instance, and just making sure that we're connecting and kind of working together, because the end goal is for all these plans to roll up into the long range plan, as Jason mentioned. Keeping going on the key takeaways, communication was mentioned several stakeholder meetings, and that was both communication between departments in the cities, right? So making sure that the park department knows and understands what the public works is doing, or the general planning and land planning understands and watches out for what the public works projects are doing. So and then inside of communication, a big one was education. So we talked a number of times about different types of education efforts that could be had, whether it's for drivers or bicyclists or students or just general safety campaigns. So that's been a big talking point. And the last key takeaway, big bullet we have is regional guidelines. Making sure to have some common language. If Green Mountain Falls calls something a trail, it means the same as if somebody in Colorado Springs called something a trail. So making sure we have the same language, so that if we say we have trail standards or we say we have bike lane standards, then it at least has the same thought across the member agencies. So we can make sure we're building things, and people, visitors, residents have a clear understanding of, or expectations of the facilities. And then we talked a little bit about complete streets approach. Language was thrown in there too. So and we'll steer clear of that conversation for now, and might have a conversation in the future about what that means. So that's all the stakeholder input so far. Those specific one-on-one interviews. Anybody have any questions about who we talked to, or maybe some specifics? Or am I good to roll on?
Anyone have a question? Kyle, since this was an update, do you anticipate when you're going to finish with the updates and have a conclusion?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, this whole plan will tuck into the long range plan. So we need to be done ahead of when that plan starts to get finalized. Okay. I'll talk about it a little bit in the schedule here at the end, but for the most part, we're anticipating having some recommendations formalized in May, June, so that we can have a draft up and ready ahead of any of the long range plans workings, and then we'll plan on being a part of their public process later in the late summer, fall, when they have open houses and things like that. So we want to make sure we're out ahead of that.
I have a couple of questions from the stakeholder document that was attached.
Yeah.
Both in the key takeaway section under safety, it says crime and homelessness on trails. Do we have an actual problem with crime on trails or a perceived problem with crime on trails?
That's a great question. I don't have the specifics in front of me, but it was for sure a perceived homelessness issue. And then as far as crime itself, I think there was at least 2 or 3 times where people had mentioned concerns about lighting and just feeling unsafe. I don't think we did not do any analysis for actual crime reporting on the trail system.
Thank you. And the other one was that you talk about multi-use paths you don't mean a 5-foot sidewalk by that, which leads to a more general question about if the definition of a multi-use path along with other definitions, are those going to show up when we cover regional guidelines at a future meeting?
I would love for them to, yes. Yep. So that goes back to that common language, right? So a multi-use path, meaning, something, right? Whether that has a minimum width or it has some just general standard of people can walk past each other, or a bicyclist can easily ride past a pedestrian, something like that. It could be as simple as a statement, but that the specifics of how it will show up in the plan itself, we still have to work out with Jason and the rest of the PPACG.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the question.
I have one more comment to Kyle. How does this work with the America Discovery Trail? Do you have any idea? It comes up, you'd pass, it goes through Green Mountain Falls in town. It's too crowded almost for people to safely walk,
Yep. It's a great example of how do we define it? Do we call it just a trail, or if it is called just a trail, does that mean we need to have some future projects that gets it to some standard width or some level of protection or offset from the roadway? Those are all fantastic questions that we will try to dive into. Don't put too much faith in that we will solve all the issues, but it's a great opportunity. Love the connectivity between different jurisdictions. So for sure it will make its way into the plan, but how much detail we can provide it, that'll be, yeah.
Well, because it's interesting up here because, then the trail, it widens, it's along Highway 24 and people even ride horses there. So, it's interesting. And one more thing, I've been a member of the PPACG CAG for about 5 years, I think. And I've always been really confused as to why we needed the MPO. Like Ed said, out west, east, they're not part of it. This is just and yet Green Mountain Falls really doesn't have a lot of population, but down farther there is. And I've always wondered why that little piece is there, and it has conflicts, and maybe this is what you're trying to overcome now to work more across everything. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll probably pitch that back to Jason if he wants to provide any comment or conversation.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. Basically, we have the MPO because it's federally required. If the PPACG wants to receive federal funds, we need to follow our census designated urbanized area and dispense the
Oh.
funds within that area. But it's a little bit complicated because PPACG is also a council of governments, which is a wider area. It includes all of El Paso, Teller, and Park counties. So we like to serve them too. Sometimes we just need to make a little bit of a distinction in order to legally spend our federal funds in certain categories. But I think for this plan, we will look beyond the MPO area a little bit, probably at a lower resolution, because there's a little bit of wiggle room in where we can, use those federal funds if we can show that there's a useful, meaningful connection that straddles the MPO boundary. So there'll be a little bit from outside that, but probably just at a lower resolution because of those requirements.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
A good example there is that Tri-County plan, right? So it's a document produced within PPACG, and so we can leverage that and to put that on the map, right? Those projects on the map, and it, that obviously does go outside the MPO. So, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ann.
Okay, so next, the general public input. We have a website. If everybody doesn't know, it's on the PPACG landing page. If you type in PPACG active into Google or just PPACG walking normally, maybe it's my Google just giving me there, but it's come up. The plan is the page has come up first thing each time I've looked up, but it is just ppacg.org/transportation/walk-bike-ride. And on that page, we have some background information, a couple of great photos, so it looks good. And then the first two things you see are now a public survey and map input. And I will actually go ahead and pull this up. So here's what this page looks like. Like I mentioned, it's got some general detail. It's got so take a survey, comment on the map. These are the two primary ways we're looking to get public input. We just made these go live about a week ago, and I don't know, Jason. Don't think I've gotten a recent update if you've started pushing the survey yet, if it's made its way to Facebook and other ways. But I did notice a nice little uptick in responses today. I think I was sitting at 20 this morning, and I'm at 42 responses. So maybe it is you the CAC members starting to get in and fill it out, and that's perfectly all right. So
I can tell you that it was included in the Downtown Partnership newsletter this morning.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. So I guess I'll take a little bit of time just to kind of give you an overview of some of the responses from that so far. So a couple of these questions, I've really been interested in the way that people respond to them. So question number 2 is, how often do you use the mode? So we've got this top one is walking or rolling. So a lot of people, red meaning every time I travel and blue meaning never. So we've got a lot of people who walk and roll daily, and same with bike. We've got a good number of almost an even split of people who do and don't ride bicycle. We're looking forward to hearing from more public transit users in the future. And then these other couple of questions, there's a couple in there that ask. Oh, we must have had another respondent. Perfect. A couple that ask how comfortable you are with certain facilities. So how comfortable are you with, walking on a paved shoulder? And rightly so, people are not very comfortable. And then similarly, how comfortable are you walking on a sidewalk that is protected by trees and benches? And most people are comfortable on that facility. So just a couple of examples of the things that are starting to see. Very much looking forward to this continuing to build out and getting a lot of respondents. I think, Jason, at one point you said you wanted to see a couple thousand responses, which I'm very excited about.
Our goal is at least 1,200, and we haven't started promoting it yet. That should be within the next few days.
That's
So-
perfect.
Kyle, Jason, do we have a way to track where these respondents are located at?
We
Because my
asked
question would be, if somebody
Oh, go
does
ahead.
a lot of walking, maybe they're just right downtown and they have no need for transportation with wheels and motors.
Yep, that's
We are
great.
asking about, oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, yep. I was just the same thing as you. We are asking what zip code people are from. And then because it's in Microsoft Forms, I'll be able to pull this into Excel at any point that I want and kind of do a cross tabulation and look at, by area code. What are people saying, by zip code? I mean, by what are people saying? It's not a required response. So
Zip code is required, actually.
is it? Okay.
wasn't
It is. You're
originally.
right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. So yeah, we'll be able to do a cross tabulation and look at how people are getting around, and that'll probably play a role in how do we prioritize different recommendations in the plan. So those the other thing that's not.
I have another question for you. Hold on.
I was just wondering, how long will the survey and map input be live?
Perfect. Yep. We are planning on advertising it to be live through the end of March. So March 29th, everybody will have a month for everybody to get in there. Past the advertisement date, we are likely to keep it open. I don't think that we'll close it so that if people want to keep on, or if it happens that people keep in putting information in, we can still receive it. But we'll kind of pull the data so that we have a snapshot in time on that day and say that that's our official input, and then we can go on after that. I was going to mention we also did a AAA survey. So in the mailer, the yearly mailer that AAA does to its members, we were able to include an insert inside of that, and so that obviously AAA has kind of a specific user base, and we'll have I think Jason said in mid-May is when they're going to do all the manual counts and things and collate those responses. So we'll have a secondary data set for that population.
And just sorry to interrupt, Kyle, but just to clarify, AAA in this case would be the Area Agency on Aging.
Sorry. Yep.
Not the Automobile Club. Sorry.
Sorry. Yep.
Glad you clarified. Anything else, Jason?
Did I hear you? Yeah, did I hear anybody have a question?
I am seeing none, no.
Okay, perfect. Next thing, I wanted to dive into the vision. So this is purely a draft. It is a planner's, vision. So it's likely not something that's going to make somebody mad because they're normally very lofty and sound great. I'm more than happy to hear and receive comments. If somebody wants to wordsmith this, feel free to send me an email or send Jason an email and he'll forward it on to me. But this is the vision for active transportation in the region. So the key highlights are that it will be comfortable, safe, and efficient, and really that we want to make the region a world-class bicycling and pedestrian destination. We've got Colorado Springs and Pikes Peak region has a lot of great things to admire and use, and a very heavy visitor population. So no reason for us to not have all the accommodations that allow people to enjoy nature and enjoy everything about the region. So I'll let anybody send an email. But as I start to turn towards looking at the goals, which I've got several slides just because when I put it all on one slide, it was very small. I wanted to maybe take a pause and ask if anybody has specific input on what is the one thing that you'd like the active plan to do, or what is one thing that you would like to see as a result of the active transportation plan? I'll pause my screen share.
Do you mean right now?
Yeah, yep. I'd love for people to shout out, and I'm gonna take notes, and I'll use this as a little bit of a information gathering. But yep, if anybody has the one thing, go ahead. Ann.
One thing that came to mind, and I know this wouldn't be easy to include possibly, but there's a lot of activity within local governments and so forth trying to comply with new regulations from the state about aid to people with disabilities. Are you going to have to include that as well? I just don't know. There are mandates coming.
Yeah, that's perfect. I will have to circle back with Jason, Danelle, and John on what exactly the implications are. But I love compliance with regulations as a one thing. Yep.
Yeah, just I don't know, but I thought I'd mention it. Thank you.
Chris, then Chuck.
My comment would be, I would hope that, and it's probably part of your education bullet, which is not really a bullet, but I heard it in one of your bullets, a recognition that the system, particularly as it relates to active transportation, is for many modes of transportation, all using it at the same time, or, I mean, depending upon where it is, it might be all at the same time, or it might be right next to it. But that, so that there's a certain egalitary of usefulness.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if that means that.
Perfect.
So my comment,
Yeah,
my comment was around in the vision statement, the statement that you would like the region to be a world-class example. And at some point, we'll need to define how we measure that. If we're going to use words like that, then there needs to be a scale to which we can compare to know that we're actually making progress there. And my specific additional comment is around the making sure that we're including not just recreation, but also, I guess, commuter uses of the trails for folks who prefer to walk, ride, scooter, bike, whatever, to get to work.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah. Performance measures and how do we keep track of things? Love it.
Anyone else?
I'm just wondering, did you guys talk about, I'm thinking of trails versus paved, right? So I mountain bike and you can, ride through you to get to whatever particular destination, right? So it encompasses everything, right? It's the paved paths, it's the hiking trails. I mean, that's what I'm seeing on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm just wondering, like, as I'm responding to this survey, I may respond differently with the perspective of trails versus paved paths within the city, right? And what
Sure.
would be more beneficial.
Or like a single track trail versus a paved. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, mostly more rec use, right? But some people do use it for transportation as well. I mean, depending on what the trail is. And then I'll just mention something just to put in your back of your mind. I saw a post the other day about a road closure and a bicycle reroute that was put in place that people felt was very dangerous and not well considered. So as you're looking at, kind of what this looks like, that's another piece of it that as we do have these road closures and it's like, that we're building a sustainable system, right, to support those closures, right, and keep people safe. So just, I don't know if that fits into this at all, but it's something that was fresh on my mind because, people are like, well, yeah, I don't know who decided this. And yeah, now I'm taking all these different trails and everyone was kind of in a disagreement about it, but it all does impact that goal of safety, right? And as we're designing this, so that's
Sure,
all.
yeah. So you're specifically, your comment is that maybe in guidelines, maybe that's the right place to put it, that route detours for non-automobiles also have some further level of scrutiny.
Yeah, I think it would be a great thing to mention, and I know that may be a more difficult thing to control at the end of the day. But it is important.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Anyone else? Or I'll move on to goals.
I see no one.
Okay, and I will note that I see that I have been yapping for a while longer than I expected. So knowing that there's 20 minutes, I apologize to Danelle in advance that I'm probably eating into her time. But so I'll kind of quickly go through these. All these goals are in that packet. The vision and goals are in the very last page of it. So that if you want to just kind of flip down to that, that's where all this is at. So preliminary goals, build on momentum. So that's preserve existing trails, leverage advocates, and leverage shared mobility technologies such as Pike Ride. Improve safety. That includes safe routes to school, encouraging youth bike and walk activities, increase trail visibility, and those regional design guidelines. Connectivity as a goal, connectivity between communities, connectivity between key destinations that live, work, play, and learn destinations, connectivity to points of interest and regional/national even destinations, connectivity to natural environment, and then to provide access across all socioeconomic communities. And then the last set of goals is education and training. So to highlight the economic value of bicycle pedestrian systems and facilities, to educate the benefits of active transportation, and then education and training on just roles and responsibilities of cyclists, of walkers, of drivers, kind of across the board. So I know I burned through those quickly. I apologize. But if anybody has any questions, anything, feel free to send me an email. If you have any word verbiage changes, more than happy to hear those and try to incorporate those as we can. But I'll start wrapping it up with the schedule and next steps. So right now, pushing the survey, as Jason just mentioned, getting ready to ramp up some advertisements, public notices. We actually put together a flyer, and we're going to try to leverage students and the student accountability committees to push that side of it. So really just want to get as many people, as many eyes on this. I would love to see thousands of responses. I think it would be fantastic, and I hope everybody likes the survey. It took a little bit different of a approach than we try to get one level further than what we could potentially have before. And then as far as schedule, as I mentioned before, we need to be staying within the long range plan schedule. So that pushes initial recommendations up, here in May and June. We will try to get those regional connections and priorities. We're going to take, we already have mapped out all the existing plans, the existing conditions we're kind of working on finalizing now and going to get out into PPACG's hands very soon in this next week. And then, these recommendations are going to focus on highlighting projects and not, we're going to try to stay away from changing priorities of locations of municipalities. But we are going to try to look at, what's missing, from our high level analysis, where connections not been suggested. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to attend and be a part of that summer/fall public and open house of the long range plan. So that's it. That's it for me. I'm down to 15 minutes for Danelle. I apologize.
Thank you, Kyle. And you benefited by us having a light agenda today, so we're able to let you speak.
Perfect. I appreciate that.
Jason, you have anything else?
I don't. Just thanks for listening. And anybody let us know if you want some flyers, copies of that, or, feel free to spread the word about the survey. Thank you very much.
And since it's difficult to remember everybody's emails and everything, if you have a question and wanted to get it to Jason or Kyle, send it to Danelle and she'll make sure they get it. Okay. Well, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Kyle. Danelle, your turn.
We are also happy to just send you the link directly to the survey and that website, if that would be helpful. We can just send it out to the CAC as a whole.
Okay.
Absolutely. So kind of piggybacking a little bit on Jason and Kyle's presentation, I just wanted to come and provide a quick update to the long-range transportation plan, what we're doing, the status of it. I think we talked, I think the last presentation was about 5 or 6 months ago. So some of this is probably a repeat, but we do have some new members, so wanted to kind of just rehash some things or bring it back, make sure everybody's kind of on the same page and knows what we're doing. So, yep, next slide, please. So the LRTP, what is it? It's a regional long-term transportation plan. It has a vision of at least 20 years. Ours will go out for 25 years, so it'll be the 2050 plan. This on the screen is just the cover of our most recent plan, which went out to 2045. That was adopted in January of 2020. So we do redo these plans every 5 years. We're shooting for no later than January of 25 for adoption of our new plan. And to Anne's point a little bit earlier, why is this important? Why do we have a metropolitan planning organization? As Jason mentioned, the metropolitan planning organization itself is required federally for all areas with a population of over 50,000 people. And part of that is because there is funding that is passed down and allocated. So a large part of what we do here at PPACG, at least in the transportation area, is help to administer the process to allocate some of that funding. And as part of that, we do the TIP, which is actually programming the money. And this is the planning. So if a project wants to get that federal funding and become part of the TIP, it has to be included or consistent with the LRTP. And next slide. This is just a map of that metropolitan planning organization for anybody who is unfamiliar with that. So as Jason mentioned, our Council of Governments does focus on all of El Paso County, Teller County, and Park County. The Metropolitan Planning Organization, our primary transportation planning area, is really limited to census designation. So that's kind of our boundary for the LRTP. And then because it is very complicated, the next slide just talks about those different organizations and the overlaps between them. So the Council of Governments, as I mentioned, is that large black oval with all 3 of those counties and all of the municipalities within them. And membership in the Council of Governments is voluntary. Within that, the MPO is that little blue circle, and that's prescriptive. Again, that's developed by federal regulations, so we can't really change that. The PPRTA, of course, is the Pikes Peak Transportation Authority, and that is voluntary, of course, again, by voters. And then finally, for those municipalities that are part of our Council of Governments but don't fall within the NPO, they're part of the Central Front Range Transportation Planning Region. So there is another transportation planning region for them. There is a plan process for them as well, but that is administered by CDOT. It's not administered through PPACG. So just because it is very complicated, we wanted to include this so that everybody kind of understands what areas we're looking at, what areas we're not looking at. The next slide just talks about, so this is our long-range transportation plan here in the middle. And all of these bubbles around it are kind of standalone components that feed into the long-range transportation plan. So we did a congestion management process that was actually adopted by our board last year. All of the local plans, so Connect COS, the Major Transportation Corridors Plan that El Paso County's completing right now, all of these various local agency plans feed into the LRTP. The Tri-County study and the freight study, those were also completed. Jason was actually the project manager on both of those. The items that are in blue are projects that are still being worked on here at PPACG and with our partners at Metropolitan, at Mountain Metro Transit. So the transit plan is a major component, a federally required component of the LRTP. The Coordinated Human Services Plan, or often called the Specialized Transit Plan, and then also the Active Transportation Plan that you heard a little bit about. So those are all ongoing. And in an ideal world, I think we would have spaced them out a little bit more so that we weren't doing so much concurrently. But unfortunately, there was a pandemic. There were issues with so it pushed some things back. So we're doing a lot concurrently. So there is a lot going on. We recognize that it can be very confusing, both just for the public, for ourselves, especially for stakeholders, because we're asking them to go to a lot of different meetings on a lot of different things. So just for everybody's awareness, there's a lot that is going on, and a lot of this does feed into the long-range transportation plan. So the next slide is just wanted to give you an idea of what are jurisdictions, what is their role in the long-range transportation plan. So as Jason and Kyle said, the active transportation doesn't usurp any of the local agency plans, neither does the LRTP. We work on it in close coordination with our local agencies. Some of the things that they are very active in helping us develop are providing us information from their plans to incorporate into ours, helping us with the regional forecast for population growth and demographics, helping us identify their needs. They've submitted projects to us, put together project cost estimates. They have been instrumental in selecting the projects. We actually primarily have our TAC do the main recommendations. And then, of course, the recommendations will come through the CAC and the board of directors. And ultimately, they'll also review the actual report and provide feedback to us for incorporation. And then the next slide here talks about the projects themselves. We get a lot of projects about how are projects, a lot of questions that we get are, how are the LRTP projects developed? Where'd they come from? Do we make them up here at PPACG? We do not. So as I said, we're not trying to replace any of the local plans. Each jurisdiction has their own They have their engineering staffs, they have their own planning processes, they have their own public engagement processes. So those jurisdictions, what we do here is we put out a call for projects, and all of our jurisdictions come together and submit projects for inclusion in the LRTP. We put them through our scoring process, and then we sat down and had a couple of workshops. I think we ended up having 2 workshops so far to try to figure out the project list or the draft project list for the LRTP. And that kind of leads us into the next slide, which is where are we? What is that project selection process? We're kind of in that green bubble down in the bottom. So as I said, we kind of had everybody submit their projects. We went through scoring. We had a workshop. And right now we're moving that draft project list into some project evaluations. So for the long range transportation plan, we need to do some evaluation related to Title VI and also to greenhouse gas requirements for the state. So that's some of the analysis that we need to do. Probably not. Thank you. So for Title VI, at least for the LRTP, we do have a Title VI and environmental justice plan as well that PPACG develops. But basically, we look at all of the projects, where they're located, and we compare those to communities in our MPO that have been identified as either populations with people of color, or populations of low income, or populations where there are a lot of people over the age of, I believe it's 65 is the environmental justice criteria. So we take a look at where those projects are dispersed to make sure that there is not areas where there's a lot of excess burden, or there's populations where there are no projects, those kinds of things. Just to kind of do an evaluation, make sure that there's nothing that's going to disproportionately impact any communities. And then, as I mentioned, we also are doing we're feeding all of the projects into our transportation development model, or transportation demand model, and getting a better idea of how people are going to move, or how we think people are going to move around the region as we develop these projects, or as the projects get developed. All of this stuff, along with the active transportation plan, all of these things will get put into a draft LRTP document. At that point, we will bring the document through all of our committees, and we'll actually have a public comment period. We'll have some open houses where everyone can come in and get more information. We'll take public comments, and then we'll do all of that. And then finally, we'll finalize and have adoption of the plan. But we do anticipate, changes made with the jurisdictions between now and then. The next slide just gives kind of an overview of where we are in the process. So that first phase was really building the framework of the LRTP, defining all of those kinds of goals and public needs. We had a public survey that was part of that, that actually bled over into the phase 2. That phase 2 was really talking about some of that scoring criteria, compiling some of our baseline demographics, some of that modeling information. Right now, we're moving into phase 3, which is doing that evaluation. We will be doing some additional interviews with some local agencies, the military, for instance, to make sure that those needs are reflected in the long-range transportation plan. And then finally, we'll move into that 4th review phase, which is, again, heavily public comment period and draft review, not only by our jurisdictions, but by our CAC members and our board. And then I think we just have one last slide in here. And I really just wanted to include this so that everybody could see the different pieces of stakeholder engagement and also public, like direct public involvement in the long-range transportation plan. So we did we do have a public involvement plan that was developed specifically for the LRTP. We did a transportation study. I think we ended up getting between 800 and 900 respondents to that survey, which was more than last time. So that's good. Always would like to get more, but it was more than last time. We've also put together a regional transportation plan advisory committee, and that kind of incorporates a lot of representatives from various local agencies throughout the study area. And we've had 4 RATPAC meetings thus far. We anticipate having 1, maybe 2 more, depending on some needs. And then, of course, the local agency interviews that I just talked about with the military and with some other community organizations. And then, so we're kind of wrapping up phase 1 for the most part, moving into phase 2, and that will really be the public comment period. The open houses will have at least 2 open houses, probably in person and virtual, so a hybrid environment to try to get as much accessibility as possible. We'll have the committee process, of course, and then formally the board meeting where we hope to adopt the plan will also serve as a public hearing. So what we would really like to ask from the CAC is, once we get to that point where we do have a draft of the LRTP, we would love for you to review it. We would love for you to share with your communities, have them involved with the open houses, spread information about the public comment period, all of that kind of stuff. We would love to have input, and we could really use the help getting it. So really, yeah, I just wanted to give everybody a status update, let you know where we were, kind of the universe of the work that's going on, and answer any questions that you might have, or if you go home and think, hey, I don't know why this happened or why this isn't included or something, shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions, or hopefully, if you guys see something that we work in a bubble, we don't see it. Outside perspective is great. So do you have any questions for me today?
Chris has one.
I do have a quick question. Sort of, I think this is very thorough about what happens within our MPO. What mechanism is out there that dovetails one MPO with another MPO, and considers really the big picture?
Yes. So there is a statewide transportation plan that brings together all of the MPO's plans and puts together a statewide plan as well.
And when does that happen within this process? Is it after all of this is done?
It is after, and I am not sure when the next statewide this next statewide plan is due. I will have to look up that date. They're getting ready to start the process.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty.
State is sort of there. So it's not always before, it's not always after, it's just how they fall based on a cycle.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Good question.
As you talked about the various jurisdictions, during your project evaluation phase, are those stakeholders brought to the tables from those different jurisdictions? How does that process actually work to determine the rack and stack?
So during the project scoring, we internally as staff actually scored the projects and provided that information to all of the jurisdictions. And then the jurisdictions all got together for workshops to help prioritize those projects. So one of the things about the LRTP that I didn't mention is that it has to be fiscally constrained, which basically means we put together a expectation of how much funding we think we're going to have in the region over the next 25 years. And our fiscally constrained project list can't exceed that amount. So we can't like say, here's 100 projects when we only have money for 50, or we can't expect money for 50. We can have an unfunded project list. So that was a big part of the workshop was working out which projects, you know, after we see all of the cost estimates and how much money is requested versus we think it will be available, kind of prioritizing those, seeing which ones maybe in some cases like reduce the scope of what's in the fiscally constrained plan, and then had some of that project be in the unfunded list for a later LRTP. So it's really worked out with the with all of the TAC members collaboratively.
Anyone else? I would encourage you to go to the open houses. They're really beneficial, and have your friends and neighbors attend as well.
We would be happy to have you.
Okay, I guess no more questions now.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chocolate, I hope.
We will
John.
have cookies.
Anyone have any announcements? Chris?
I just wanted to announce that Kono is very proud. We have a new cohort of Neighborhood University students starting this Friday, and 47 of your neighbors have joined this cohort, which means that Kono has increased the participation in this program every year, or it's actually, I think, every semester since it was launched in 2022. And the graduation of this class puts the total alumni at around 200. And they're now part of some of the most influential committees in the city, like the Mayor's Strategic Planning Force, LETAC, Historic Preservation Board, this board, and around 30 more are involved in the neighborhood network boards around the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Anne.
Oh, Ann, go ahead.
I guess it's okay to say, I have qualified to run for trustee in Green Mountain Falls, and we're having a candidates meeting this evening in about 2 hours. So there are 4 of us running for 2 places on the little governing body of Green Mountain. I've been on the planning commission for about 2 years. So I just thought I'd let you know that. And then if I'm elected, of course, I'll be replaced by somebody else. So thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Any more comments, John? Okay. I am. Okay. If there's no further comments, we have the schedule listed, and we'll be adjourned at this time then.